It's so annoying being a uni applicant. Why can't they just like...
It is irritating. I mean, and on top of that, it's different in schools across the country now because of the way that this is working, but the majority of exams are still taking place in May, which means that a lot of pupils sitting their exams are not going to know if they are applying for Glasgow, whether they're getting an unconditional or a conditional, or whether they've got an offer at all.
Yeah.
Which is just going to, it would make life so much easier and less stressful for people if they knew that. And also, what if you decide to focus less on one subject and then discover afterwards that it's the one subject that you needed to get a good mark in for your conditional place?
I know. Like, I'm not invested in history right now, but I bet it will be the subject that will get, that my offer will be conditional on. I hate.
You just hate.
I just hate. I'm just a hateful person. I'm just a hateful person. I hate the whole uni applications process. I wish it was just like, I wish you could just study a uni level degree at your school.
And on that, it's time for the podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to Words Without Wisdom, the podcast where we answer the pressing questions that you did not know that you wanted to know the answers to. My name is Evan Dixon.
And I'm Matthew Lyon.
And, I mean, what can I say, Matthew? It's been a busy news day.
It has, well...
When I say busy, I mean the news has been filled with
one thing only.
Story, and that is...
the death of...
The passing of the Duke of
Sooty.
Sooty?
It's actually the 70th... And today is the 17th birthday of famous YouTuber Tommy Innit. And also it's when did Shaun of the Dead come out? What year? Because it's the anniversary.
2004?
It's the anniversary of Shaun of the Dead today.
2004? I was somehow right.
Ironically, a film which contains a character named Philip who is a zombie, or who dies and becomes a zombie. And people were asking Edgar Wright to tweet a meme about Prince Philip to do with the zombie thing in his own film, and he was like, no, I'm not doing that because that's horrible.
Oh no. Oh no.
So yeah, of course.
Prince
Philip.
So where were you when you learnt that the Duke of Edinburgh had passed away?
I was sitting at this very desk, bored, and then the BBC News thing came up and I went, that's not surprising.
I was in the car and then I got a text from you saying Prince Philip is dead. He's dead.
Oh yeah. I was quick on the ball.
And then,
I wanted to be the first to share the news. I like being the first to share news stories.
And then I googled him and nothing came up and I was like, surely he's lying.
Yeah, why would I lie about that?
I don't know. And then I went out to Twitter and then the Associated Press had tweeted it and I was like, well, it must be true. And then
you really don't have post notifications on for Her Majesty the Queen on Twitter?
I don't have Twitter because it gives me blood pressure.
Oh, so it does. I forgot you deleted your Twitter.
It just gives me anxiety. Anyway, and then my mother and I put on the car radio, and it was like Madonna on BBC One, on Radio 1, and I was like frantically trying to find the news channel, but it hadn't broken yet on the radio.
Ah, breaks very quickly.
And then they started playing the national anthem, and it was.
I hate the national anthem.
Solemn. Sorry?
I hate the national anthem.
Yeah, it's a bit sycophantic.
I thought you were about to defend the national anthem the way you sounded there. I was like, I don't like... You were like, what? I will defend the national anthem to the death. Save our gracious Queen. We're going to have to pay royalties. Who owns it? Who owns...
Are we going to get a copyright strike for
our... I mean, we're so accurate from the Queen. The Queen will come down and...
I don't know if she owns the copyright.
I don't know. I don't imagine anyone owns the copyright. I feel like that would be a bit of a weird thing.
It's probably public domain. I think national anthems tend to be public domain. But
and it's our unique
country.
performance.
Do you think the national anthem of like South Sudan is public domain?
Why would it? I don't really know.
They were only founded in like 2011.
I feel like the state would commission the writing of a national anthem though. And then that would then just not... It would be, like, released, The
national anthem of South Sudan is called South Sudan Oye.
Oye. Is it Oye? Oye? What does it mean?
I think it's just a sort of scream. Oi!
Oh, right. Just like,
South Sudan.
hey, well, South Sudan.
Like, yeah, oi is an equivalent of hurrah, apparently,
Ah.
in South
Could
Sudan.
you imagine if we had United Kingdom, hurrah? And that was just the name of the national anthem.
I mean, Rule Britannia is like...
But that's like a title that makes sense. Like, at least, you know, it's like a phrase. But could you imagine if it was like the announcer on the Queen's Jubilee had to stand up and say, and now we will sing the national anthem, United Kingdom, hurrah.
Hurrah!
Hurrah. And every time you say it, though, it's like a decree. You have to go, hurrah! And you have to say it with gusto.
We should do a segment on, like, the world's hottest national anthems.
Why do you have to describe them as hot?
The world's most catchy national anthems. Oh, we actually
Maybe
should.
we'll
That'd
do
be
a
quite
whole
good
national
one.
anthems episode, but not this episode.
Oh, we should. No, not this episode.
We have many.
Is it like a World National Anthems Day or something? Let me just...
I'll let you frantically type.
obnoxiously type it. March the 3rd, oh, we've missed it.
So the actual death of Prince Philip, my initial reaction would just be, I don't care. Like, that sounds
Neutrality,
cruel.
you know?
But on a human level, I care because it's another life lost.
Yeah, well, yeah, on a human level.
On a I mean,
pretty
he's
neutral to it.
on a human level, I care. Like, he's a husband, a father, a grandfather, a great grandfather, you know, and like all those people are suffering loss, and that's, you know, that's a human thing, and obviously this sympathy there, but not really care, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. I'm someone who would probably consider themselves a humanist, so, you know, I'm not going to rejoice in anyone's death, but I'm not necessarily going to mourn it either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not someone we know personally. It's just he's like in any normal circumstance, if someone just died, I wouldn't mourn it because it's not someone I know personally. But I'm even less likely to mourn it when that person is essentially a symbol of everything that's wrong with British democracy.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the Queen is probably more a symbol of...
True, a symbol of... Well, if he's still a symbol of the monarchy as a whole and the royal family, which is every one of them is. Kill them all, guillotine.
But you know, on the one hand, it does make me... I'm not a fan of the whole like...
No, I'm not a fan of like rejoicing in
and you know, and I'm not a fan of it when it's like Thatcher. I'm not a fan of it when it's anyone. Like,
I don't know. I'm a
really.
fan of it when it's Thatcher.
Yeah, well,
I think if you are responsible, as Thatcher is, for the deaths of that many people, like the indirect deaths of that many people, I think then your death can be celebrated.
Possibly.
Would you celebrate the death of like an evil terrorist?
Well, that's a good point.
See, and I'm not saying that you should. I wouldn't say, like, depending, you know, but it's just that I was just wondering if you kind of judged. I was trying to check if you were racist. No, you know, but yeah. I just feel that I don't like giving people a pass just because they are evil of another sort rather than evil of an explicit kind. But at the same time, I wouldn't celebrate and I'm not celebrating Prince Philip's death. I am sympathetic.
I'm neutral to it.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm like, people are free to debate Prince Philip's public service record. I'm sure he did do some pretty nasty stuff. I'm sure he did do some pretty good stuff. People are not black and white.
That is very true. From what I've seen of Prince Philip's public record, it's mainly one of hypocrisy. One of save endangered species and proceeds to shoot a tiger and take pictures with it, or, you know, a belief in... It's quite a lot of the media today have been talking about his environmental beliefs, but he also thought that there should be compromise, as if compromise is possible in a way to prevent serious climate change, you know, or and of course, as a rich man, placed the onus on the individual rather than the corporation or the massive producers of CO2, etc.
But then he also did insist that, like, the tiger was lame. So, I mean, who knows? No one was there.
I don't trust him.
I don't know. Everyone's a hypocrite about something.
Probably, sure.
That doesn't give him a...
Absolutely true. Of course, this also allowed one of the funniest news moments of the day when they got John Sentamu, or John Sentamu, or whatever it is, on the BBC, and mid-interview, he just started praying live on the BBC. and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't. Is this?
I
is this
caught about half of it.
allowed?
It's like, I mean, yeah, it's.
It just seems like a sort of strange. I was deeply. I don't like John Sentimo already because he's a massive homophobe, but and generally all round terrible guy. Member of the House of Lords, one of the bishops in the House of Lords, I believe, or at least he was at some point.
No boys, I think. Well, he was the Archbishop of York, so I think by ex officio he would have.
Yeah.
Well, he definitely would have.
So generally not a guest guy, and I mean, but yeah, that's Prince Philip. I'm like,
Yeah. People are grey. I think I'm learning that more and more. People are not. People are complex.
That's true. He doesn't get me any holidays, so I should not say that. I'm just glad it wasn't the Queen, because if the Queen had died during something that was already a holiday, I would have been royally pissed off.
But
I didn't even think about that. I did that by accident. I genuinely didn't think about that.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that makes it even better.
That does make it better. And with that terrible pun, I think it's time to move over to everyone's favourite section, or subsection, or podcast within a podcast of the Words Without Wisdom podcast. It's, of course, Hot or Not, or America's Hottest Politicians. Welcome to America's Hottest Politicians with Matthew Lyon and Evan Dixon. So, of course, you know the score, you know the game. Evan will present to me someone who, an American politician who he thinks is hot, and I will presumably say that he's not. But I'm still waiting to be swayed, and we'll go over his statistics and how Evan ranks him in terms of hotness, etc., etc. So, Evan, you've not actually told me yet, but this week's hot or not candidate is who?
So this week's hot or not candidate was the 72nd Governor of Maine, serving from 1995 until 2003, and subsequently became the junior senator from the great state of Maine, starting in January 2013. He is one of two independents in the United States Senate, and he recently reached the great age of 77, and his name is Angus King.
Angus King, fantastic. Now, of course, I know of Angus King as the only other independent in the Senate, and also for looking...
Bernie Sanders, in case anyone's wondering.
Yes, quite a considerable amount like Bruce Forsyth.
Oh, that's exactly what it is.
He does, see? He looks like Bruce Forsyth, he just does.
He does.
If you don't know what he looks like, Google him. He's essentially American Bruce Forsyth.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm looking at him, and unlike some of the other candidates which you've presented to me, he is, well, not unlike, quite similarly to, he's just an old man. And I don't know your taste, but...
Is he?
Oh, yes, he is, in fact. He was born in 1944, so he's 77. So tell me what it is that you find so attractive about this man.
Well, I like independent thinkers.
Okay.
I like people who are willing to be mavericks and break away from the crowd. I can only respect that. His tie I like the pattern on his tie.
What are you avoiding here?
What am I avoiding?
What are you avoiding? Well, you're saying a lot of things that have nothing to do with his actual appearance.
I don't judge people's worth based on their appearance. For goodness sake.
That's the point of the show!
What else would I have? Why would...
What?
How dare you?
Okay, come on.
How
Come on. Tell us
dare
the
you.
scores. Tell us the scores.
Okay. So for looks, Senator King receives a 6. He's not, this is a 6.
He's an old man.
Like in terms of what I find attractive conventionally, he's in the higher half. For charm, he gets an 8.
An 8? That is high.
I know he's based on interviews and like things I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
He's quite a charming person. His ideology score is 0.49, which puts him in a 6 in the policy column.
6 in the policy column.
Which gives him an overall rating of 66.7% and an aesthetic rating of 70%.
70%? And how does that compare to other members? Bernie Sanders, let's say, since he's the other independent.
Well, aesthetically, he's slightly... Well, Bernie Sanders received 60% for aesthetics, so he's 10% higher. But Bernie Sanders also received a 73.3% overall, so he's 6.6% less overall hot in inverted commas than Senator Bernie Sanders. Just where we're at, this makes independents the hottest party affiliation. I don't know what it was last week, but this week independents.
I think it was Republicans.
Okay, well this week independents have pulled ahead and are the hottest overall party affiliation, but are the least hot aesthetic party affiliation.
Least hot aesthetic party affiliation. Interesting.
Indeed.
Because there's only two of them and they're both quite old men.
Yeah.
It's understandable. I don't really have much to say about him other than he absolutely looks like Bruce Forsyth, and I can't get over how much he looks like Bruce Forsyth. It's to an unbelievable extent. I see him and I just think Bruce Forsyth. It's impossible not to. So, as always, as rather expectedly, coming to the end of this hot or not segment, Evan thinks hot, and I think not. You've been listening to America's Hottest Politicians with Matthew Lyon and Evan Dixon.
Hello and welcome back to the main section of the podcast. What we're going to talk about in this section, Matthew? You mentioned that you were looking around your room for inspiration.
Well, I was looking around my room for inspiration and I found this book that I've been reading. It's not really a book. It's more of just a sort of it's a catechism, I believe is the correct term, although I don't really know what that means. And it's called The Principles of Communism by Friedrich Engels. Friedrich, German man, most famously wrote the Communist Manifesto with Karl Marx. And was a big friend of Karl Marx, and I've been reading it, and as much as I already know most of the stuff that's in it, I think if you don't know much about about communism and this topic and the kind of left-wing ideals, this would be a really good book to read, because unlike something like the Communist Manifesto, which is essentially an expanded version of this, it's very concise. It's basically a set of, if I look to the very end, 25... Hang on, you may hear pages so I can get 25 questions that someone may have about communism and then or Marxism, and then they're all answered, just laid out, super simple. It's like a really short book. It's only 46 pages, and it would be like, if you wanted to learn more, be a super good book before you move on to something bigger like Capital or the Manifesto, because it's sort of more concise. And Engels has a more sort of understandable writing style than Marx did. At least in translated works. Firstly,
it's pronounced catechism, but also
catechism. It does not look like that. Yeah, but sure.
But also, I like how I like the assumption that we have a massive Marxist following.
I mean, not even for well, if we have if anyone in the audience is already a Marxist, then they know this stuff. So it's not really for Marxists, and even at the time it wasn't for Marxists, because it was basically commissioned by the Communist League in London, I believe, to give out as a sort of almost like an informational leaflet kind of thing. So if there's anyone listening who's sort of interested in this stuff, that's who I would recommend it for. I wouldn't recommend it for a seasoned Marxist, if you could say. I don't know I wouldn't call myself a seasoned Marxist. I'm quite new to the arena, but I just happen to have not read this specific one yet, and it's actually super easy to understand and, user friendly, you might say, for newbies, or even if you weren't if you just wanted to know more,
Here at Words Without Wisdom, we acknowledge that economics, like people, is not black and white.
Do we?
I don't know. I was just...
I know economics is a massively...
I just wanted to say something.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, economics is a massively complicated system, but this is a pretty good example of a structure, or at least a model for a way to achieve a system which is massively fairer than the one we currently live in. So if you're interested in that, give it a read.
And if you'd like to send us some fascist materials, please do so at wordswithoutwisdom, WISDM, at gmail.com.
Please do that, actually, yes. We would love to hear from you.
Because we encourage free thought and debate here.
And we also encourage emails, because we love emails. We want emails. Please send us emails. We love emails. Wordswithoutwisdom, wordswithoutwisdm @gmail.com. The ironic thing, actually, to get back to the comedy and less of the seriousness of this podcast, is that I bought this from eBay, from a sort of a little shop, a little seller, in the vein of, the spirit, and it arrived in an Amazon package. I will say a giant Amazon package. It's an A3 size Amazon envelope, which contained I don't even know what size this would be. It's not quite A4, but it's not quite as small as A5 sized book, which I think is hilarious and utterly ironic. So that's good stuff there.
Not very environmentally friendly packaging, but
oh yes, very much not very environmentally
as I was
friendly.
saying earlier, we're all hypocrites about something, and I think everyone's probably a hypocrite about the environment. Even
yeah.
Greta Thunberg is probably
everyone has to be a hypocrite about the environment, because it's much like it's almost like sort of one of those takes that you'd hear on GMB from Piers Morgan before he was fired, where he'd bring on an environmental activist and then say, is that a wooden shelf I see behind you? And then
but you'd also bring on an environmental activist who was such a bad arguer.
I mean, yeah, they pick the ones that are like, they always get Benjamin Butterworth on to debate. What a moron. He's just rubbish. Well, he's not a moron. He's just not very good at his job. Apparently, he's a journalist of some description, but I don't know what kind of journalist he is. Then again, I could say the same for
a journalist that has
Piers Morgan.
I know, and it's like, well, two people whose views I absolutely loathe. There is no way for me to. You're alienating me as an audience member.
Well, at least he's gone now, and he's going to GB News. What do you think of GB News? Because I remember you saying something about it.
I'm very excited for it to launch, actually.
Why are you?
Just to see how it is. Just to see how it is. Just to see if it's going to be as polarizing as everyone says it will be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna come to it with an open mind.
Actually, no. Is it a paid for service? Is it like a streaming thing, or is it going to be on Freeview? Or
I think it will be. No, I think it will be on Freeview.
Oh,
in fact, it will definitely be on Freeview. I'm sure. 236, if I remember right.
I say that I don't watch TV, but I'm sure I'll just see YouTube clips of whatever's on it. It's basically the way most people consume the news now.
And speaking of consuming media, I think it is time for us to talk about another form of media.
A television show, would you say?
Indeed, I would. Yes, it's that time of the week again. We're going to be ranking Doctor Who episodes, and this week we're on series 2.
We are on series 2. Now this is and I have a question for you before we start this, and I'm going to ask you this for every episode of this kind. Okay, of course, the first episode we're doing is the Christmas Invasion, and I really enjoy this question. Is that I'm going to ask you because it depends on the special, but do you believe that the Christmas Invasion, although I think you've just given away your answer, is a part of series 2 or series 1?
Interesting question. Probably. I think in my head I'd probably consider it series 2 because it's a Tennant episode.
That is true, because we all the specials are always kind of explicably linked to one series or another, and it's often the subject of discussion as to which they link to. But as we go through them and as we get to each special, I'll ask you that same question and we'll see if we have any disagreements. But I would also agree it's very much a series 2 episode, because as much as it's carrying on from series 1 is kind of done. Like the arc of series 1 and the Doctor of series 1, they're all gone. This is the lead into series 2 more than the lead out of series 1.
Exactly.
Because series 1 doesn't really require this episode, but season 2 does. That's kind of how I see it. But as an episode, the Christmas Invasion, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I like it. I like the Sycorax. I like Harriet Jones, who's now Prime Minister. I like Jackie and Mickey,
who's now actually I missed that news. When did Boris Johnson leave?
I would love Penelope Wilton.
I would also
not Harriet Jones.
Yeah.
No, maybe not Harriet Jones, but Penelope Wilton.
Yeah, she would be a good Prime Minister. Yeah, no, I think the Christmas Invasions were super good. Like as an introduction to, first of all, it's the first Christmas special we've covered, and I think this is kind of I keep talking about the fact it's a Christmas special, but it's also a Christmas special. And another thing I like to rank, kind of base my judgment of Christmas specials on, is also how Christmassy they are. because as a Christmas special, it needs to be Christmassy, and this is a very Christmassy episode. You know, you got Christmas trees, you got Santas, you got it being Christmas Day, you got Christmas family dinners at the end, you got snow, you got everything. Or the Doctor Who trope of snow that isn't actually snow, but it's ash, or it's done on purpose, or it's you know what. But overall, I think it's a really good episode. Really risky choice to have David Tennant unconscious for most of it, but it just makes the moments that he is there so much more satisfying.
Doctor Light episodes worked in this series.
Yeah, well,
or in Doctor Light episodes
work most of the time.
The Christmas Invasion,
not so much the rest of this series, but we'll get to that. So I would give the Christmas Invasion probably a good. I think the Christmas Invasion is a good story.
I think so too.
So I'm going to put that up there, and you seem to agree. So moving away from the Christmas special now, a small gap in the first episode of Series 2, New Earth. Our first introduction to New Earth. Earth.
It's
Earth.
Yeah.
It's our first introduction to the new planet of New Earth. New Earth, New York. Cassandra returns. Chip.
Cassandra returns.
The Doctor playing Cassandra in the Doctor's body. Just super fun stuff. I love all that.
Again, Zoe Wanamaker, if she was a candidate for Prime Minister, I would vote for her. Or I would vote for her party. So, I mean,
New Earth for me is like, Okay, there are fun moments, but as an overall story, it's kind of nothing. And a pretty disappointing first episode.
I'm not sure I agree. I think it's quite a fun introduction.
It's fun, but it's disappointing. Disappointing in terms of it's like the second story of the Doctor, and he spends a lot of it not as the Doctor. If you know what I mean.
Well, maybe.
But that's because, and this is interesting. That's because this episode wasn't actually originally intended to be first, which is
I didn't know that.
It was moved around, which is why I think it's quite obvious that there's very little, like it's this new Doctor's second episode, and they're kind of just quite or David Tennant, like they're quite comfortable with themselves. There's not a lot of the more sort of questioning themselves elements or learning about their character that we get in other second episodes. If you think about Matt Smith's second episode, The Beast Below, you know, there's a lot in that about who the Doctor is and who this new Doctor is going to be. And, you know, he's like, I'm going to commit murder. And then he's like, well, maybe not. You know, and there's not a lot of that in this episode.
I suppose.
So, I mean, where would you put it on our ranked tier list? Just for anyone who doesn't know, our ranked tier list goes from the greatest to amazing to good to okay to bad to awful. And then not canon is on there, but we're just ignoring that because I don't think anything is not canon.
No. I don't believe in that. I would say good, but you may disagree.
You would say good?
I think it's just a fun introduction to the series, and I don't think, in terms of the arc, it needs to be too.
I really want to put it in okay though.
Too seminal.
I think. I feel like we're putting a lot of episodes in good now as well. Like good is really building up at this point. And a
lot of episodes are good.
They are, but I just don't feel it stands up as an episode to something like Rose or Father's Day or Boomtown or you know, the Christmas Invasion.
Well, I'm willing to put it in okay.
Okay.
As long as you hear me out.
I will. I will. So that's in okay. And the next episode, you clearly have some sort of opinion on. So
I never liked Tooth and Claw.
No, I agree with you.
Oh, good. So I'm. Again, I think I mentioned last or a couple of episodes ago, historical episodes don't do it for me, really.
I don't mind historical episodes. It's not like it's like I can enjoy them if they're well written, if they're good stories. I just think the Tooth and Claw is kind of. I enjoy the Queen Victoria performance. I enjoy the Scottish setting and all those sort of little things, but as an overall story, it's just kind of meh, and a lot of people forget about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I almost forgot about it until like I thought about what the next episode was. I was like, what is? I don't even know. I mean, and it's not really helped by the slightly aged special effects of the werewolf.
Oh God, yeah. And also just forgettable, to be honest. The fact that you of all people had to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I like even you know, to give props to New Earth. I was like, yeah, I know New Earth. It's New Earth. This one, I was just like, oh hi, there you go. You know.
So I would say okay, possibly even bad.
I would agree with bad.
I think I'm willing to put it in bad.
Not that it's explicitly bad, because I don't think any.
No,
I don't think there's any. There are
monsters.
not that many episodes of Doctor Who that I would say were actually bad. At least not.
Yeah.
At least not until much later. But in terms of relativity to everything else, I think I would agree with bad. So the next
School Reunion is good.
School Reunion is fantastic.
Oh.
Or amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic is not an option. Amazing. School Reunion is amazing.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I'm willing. I'm
willing
to agree
it's the
with you
return of
there.
Elizabeth
You've got
Lee.
the oil, the whole Sarah Jane. I mean,
Don't eat chips; they make you fat and also smart. But Sarah Jane is such an icon. I mean, even for like, I couldn't imagine what it would have been like to see Sarah Jane come back if you'd watched her in the classic series in the 70s. But even as someone who hadn't seen that, I still knew who she was and knew and it was still a great performance.
Yeah, me too, I think.
And it was still really enjoyable, and she's still great in it, obviously, and like the banter between her and Rose, and it generally is a story.
And K9 and Mickey, the banter between K9
and Mickey are great in this. Mickey sort of getting a bit more to do. Just great stuff. Great stuff.
You have the Krellitanes.
The Krellitane are so, but Anthony Head's performance as Mr. Finch, or the head of the...
Did you have to look up his name?
I did. I couldn't remember. I'm so disappointed in myself. I am. But yeah, Anthony Head as Mr. Finch. Outstanding guest star performance. I mean, Doctor Who has a very hit or miss with its guest stars, but this one, exquisite, menacing. And when he turns back into a human and he like cracks his thing, and it's all just so well performed, you know.
Yeah.
So fantastic, so amazing.
I'm willing to say,
we should
fantastic.
We should make it fantastic, but it's amazing. Amazing for School Reunion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. As always, we're very happy to have you here. If you have any thoughts on what we said this week, make sure to email them to wordswithoutwisdom@gmail.com. That is wordswithoutwisdm, no O in the wisdom, @gmail.com. Make sure, I haven't said this before actually, but I probably should tell you to follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to your podcast. And if you can, on the podcast app you're using, make sure to rate the podcast 5 stars because you love it so much. Follow and subscribe and share with all your friends. That's all the things I have to say to make us bigger. I know it's annoying, but I have to say it. So I think that's us done.
That's us done.
So I'd like to say thank you for listening. From me.
From me.
Goodbye.